Okie dokie. I did not go live from the show. I wanted to, but today is Tuesday. I was at GalaxyCon in Oklahoma City on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I left late Thursday night after having a nice dinner at the lake with my family. And GalaxyCon was a pinch point moment. What do they call it? Like going into the crucible, something along those lines. And so it was fantastic. It was challenging, and I'm a better person for having been there. I am live streaming on YouTube. I'm going to continue to just keep this as part of the podcast for now so people realize that I'm trying to do more on YouTube and have a presence over there as well. And that's just because honestly, I want to reach more writers, more authors who are using different mediums and different platforms. So this is live right now. If you make a comment on YouTube, I will do my best to reply. I believe that the functionality in the service I use to podcast will allow me to see your comments. So I'm keeping a close eye on that. But at the moment, I'm inside of the studio for StreamYard, which is where I record all of my podcasts. It's pretty cool. My buddy Chris Talon and I share a studio, and I can tell that I'm recording more episodes than Chris. So get on it, Chris. With that in mind, I have a huge backlist of interviews that I have done for this show, and I'm just not getting them out because enough. And I'm prioritizing things as best I can. So I'm doing another slow episode, and I really do believe it's a long time that the slow episode is the that I can bring to you. So that's why I get it done. It's something interesting on the show, and not me saying things that I've had very important experience. So, GalaxyCon Oklahoma State was popular. So important that I be doing another solo episode instead of getting one of these reviews fresh out of the door to you. On Friday at GalaxyCon, I had such a dismal time that it crossed my mind that I really wasn't cut out for this, and that maybe I should just shut up and go home, quit the whole gig. I seem to have these a lot, and I hope that's a good sign that I am sensitive to the need to change. The reason I believe it might be a good thing is because I tend to have really great fortune after terrible situations, and that usually means I've reflected and behaved differently, and that has taken me to a new level. And so I hope that when you hear these episodes and you get some of this stuff and internalize it, it helps you too. And maybe you get to avoid just a handful of the mistakes that I have made along the way, or that they come to you a little bit quicker. For all of the studying and education that I've gotten in marketing, in sales, in writing books, in editing, in finding readers and reviews, I still seem to have to suffer every little bump along the way. And so maybe that's the truth, is that even though I'm going to share this with you, you'll have to suffer it yourself before you can learn to do it differently. Regardless, it seems to help to have people talking about it. So that's my perspective at the moment. Perhaps it'll change in the future. Well, let's get to Friday. Friday, I arrive in Oklahoma City, and it's going to be a big con. I want to have some great grand pictures, maybe some videos during the time. So I set up the whole display for the first time. I had my backdrop with #writers. I had both of my new vinyl retractable signs set up. And I have all these books. I have like hundreds and hundreds of books because I'm expecting, who knows, this could be like just massively better than anything I've done before. I wheel everything in. I get to the convention center, not terribly scary. They kind of have to tell me where to park a little bit, but it's not a big deal. I get things set up relatively quickly. But one thing I notice when I go in is that my table is significantly smaller than any table I've had before. And so with both of my retractable stands and the little sign, I have like a 1.5 feet of clearance between where my area ends and the vendor behind me in the aisle behind me starts. So very limited room to move around. And I had to like fold up my tablecloth. We were all jammed together. Everything was close. It was a different feel. There were a ton of us there. So part of me is like, okay, I have to figure out how to pack in a little more efficiently and perhaps change a little bit there, but no big deal. It looks nice, looks good. Get some pictures, and I just get ready, like walk around, meet some other authors. get some business cards, introduce myself, all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, this is going to be good. This is going to be great. Doors open 2 o'clock, I want to say. So I think it was just 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Friday. And so I'm standing there. People are walking around. I've heard about these cons, and I've been to Cincinnati with David and Lydia Scherer, that Fridays could be a little bit slow. I saw that Friday was a touch slow in Cincinnati. So, hey, whatever. We're going to see. People are walking by, and I am waiting for that moment where somebody who's walking past kind of flicks their eyes up to me. So not looking directly at the table, but kind of flicks up and acknowledges that I exist. And the longer I'm standing there and the less that's happening, the more I'm starting to feel like maybe something's not right in what's going on. But I don't know how to fix it because I don't love to be the person who just calls out every person who walks by. Not to mention that the guy at the corner or the end booth, it wasn't really a corner because the food court started there. But anyways, that person over there was he really called out anybody he could, and he would say, "You want to come over and check my stuff out?" It wasn't there was no pitch at all. It was just like, "Hey, come check my stuff." And so he got a lot of people, and I I didn't love his style. I didn't love his style. I felt like he was compelling people more than engaging with people who might want to. He was calling out people who even had their heads turned back to him. But he was getting people to his table. Maybe I was jealous. Maybe something was happening. I wasn't in a good place. I wasn't loving how he was doing it. And so instead of getting like more assertive and trying to figure it out, I got even more timid. I got a little bit scared. And before I knew it, 4 hours had gone by, 6 o'clock. And I think I might have sold one book up to that point. I was very, very nervous. He had sold some on the edge. The guy I was talking about who's calling people out, I'd seen him make some sales, and I thought, I'm screwed. There was a lady next to me with her boyfriend, and she was selling little crocheted, plushy type squeezable doll or like animal type things. They were cute. She had sold some stuff. I was tanking, feeling horrible. And in the next 2 hours, I sold another 6 books, 5 books. And it was a terrible day. I made $70 gross. I grossed $70 on Friday. I might as well not have even showed up. In the meantime, I had early on met a guy. I'm going to grab his book right now, named David Joel Stevenson. David Joel Stevenson. He will be a guest on this podcast. I really look forward to interviewing him. I met him, and I loved his book cover. So if you're only listening to this podcast, I will have a picture of the book cover in my show notes. If you check out Substack, that's where you can get all of the full media. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can't see pictures in the show notes. But anyways, I will have a picture of the book there. I'll have links to David's stuff so that you can check out his books. I met him, and he and I talked and kind of hit it off a little bit. And so, both of us are from far away. He's Nashville, I'm Omaha, so we're not going home. You want to grab dinner afterwards? Yeah, sounds great. So as things kind of wrap up, he comes over. Where do you want to go? I have to tell him I'm doing this whole carnivore thing. That was funny, but it went well. And we went to a local place that was supposed to serve pretty good burgers and such. It was a brewery. I did absolutely want beer, like in the worst way. I wanted beer. I'd had a terrible day. It's been 50 plus days on carnivore, and I really, really was feeling like drinking. But I fully committed verbally and otherwise to the situation and said, listen, I'm a carnivore. I know it's kind of weird, but I only eat meat. But really, let's just have fun and talk and everything. And it was great. So we share life stories. We get deep into it. He had a churchy past. I have a churchy past. So there were a lot of areas where we were able to relate. We're similar in age. It's going good. And I just thought, like, hey, here's a new friend. And that took some of the sting of the day away. Then something happened that changed a lot and was absolutely horrific for me. So we're finished with dinner. We're driving back to the convention center where I had left my car because we drove his, and we're getting close and talking about the pitch, talking about the sales, and he gives me his pitch. And immediately when he shares his pitch with me, I was like, man, that's next level. It's really good. I wanted to read his books after he pitched me on his books just sitting in the car. And I knew right then, before anything was said, that my pitch was inferior. So when he asked, like, what's your pitch? Why didn't you share it with me? I felt this intense sense of reticence. Look at that sense, intense sense of reticence. That's like the opposite of rhyming. But, anyways, that's pretty cool. Let's do it. Maybe I have a calling. I gave him my pitch, and I could see as I was giving him the pitch that he knew, and I knew, and everybody there knew my pitch was not great. And so he explained why his pitch was better. And he said, man, you need to find the story. You're not here to sell your series. You're not even here to sell a book. You're here to tell a story. And if you tell a good story, people will want to know the rest and they will want to buy your books. I just knew he was right. So the old one, I think I've told it to you before, but I'll remind you right here and now, Boozy Adventures, or I updated it to Booze Fueled Adventures with a splash of dark humor and a twist of magical mayhem. All of those things are true. They're the three high points. I might have even mentioned them in my most recent podcast. It's the rule of three, and I think it works really well as this super quick identifier for the series. They're all going to be booze fueled. That's kind of rated R. A lot of drinking, a lot of drugs in my books, a lot of cursing with a splash of dark humor. I can't write without trying to be humorous. I find humor in everything and I try to call it out. And a twist of magical mayhem. I haven't written a book in a long time that doesn't employ some level of magical scheme to it. It's in my blood. So these things are true, but they don't tell a story. And so when people hear that they're booze fueled mysteries, I was getting the question before, like, what does that mean? And I would have to explain it. So the pitch is already leaving people a little bit confused. And Steve Piper of Ammo was the first person to tell you confused people don't buy. And so that was part of my problem. Going back to the Strawberry Fest in Arkansas, is that I didn't have a concise pitch that told the story and reeled people in. Um, but and this is where a lot of thinking comes into play. So I finish up realizing I have a terrible pitch. The only redeeming moment at the end of that dinner with David, when we were sitting there sharing pitches, was that I started to have just a vague sense of like, okay, I know what the heart of my book is. I know where things are supposed to go. And so I can rework the pitch. So I left just a teeny sliver of hopefulness, but also like, I don't know how to salvage it. I don't know how to fix this. I'm right in the middle of a moment right now. What can I do? So he goes his way. I get in my car. I go to the gym because you can shower there, and maybe I can just get a sweat on and feel a little bit better. Hadn't worked out for the day. Not all of heaven and earth could get me to really work out. I did shower, got clean, and I just was feeling like a loser. I want to quit. And so I stayed parked right there at the gym. I slept in the gym parking lot in my van, handy dandy, lovely place to sleep. Didn't get in any trouble. It wasn't too hot. Fell asleep. Good. Bingo, bango. I wake up and the hell has not left my mind. I am a failure. This guy's doing better than I am. The only reason I didn't sell more books is because I can't do this. And I thought, you know what? I'm not made for this. I'm not made for this kind of thing. I thought I'm just going to go home. I'm going to drive home. I'm going to enjoy the long weekend with my family. And on Tuesday, I'll look for some kind of job. I've done sales before. I can find something and make decent money and stop this whole BS thing of being terrible. I went to Starbucks after hitting the gym. So I did actually do a little bit of working out, and I sat at the Starbucks. I decided I would work on my sales page, my landing page for Ammo, try to fix that because I was running money to it. So I might as well do the best I can. Um, and I opened up a text editor and just started to play with the idea of a pitch. And I'm still feeling like I want to go home. I'm going to go to the con. I know that I'm not going to waste money. I can't show up at home and tell my wife that I'm a total loser. But I'm still probably in the headspace of, even though I'm going to stay and do this, I'd rather be home, and I'm not ever going to do this again. Like, I'm done. That's how I'm feeling at that moment. As I'm playing around with the pitch, I'm starting to see the elements come together. A sale comes through on my Shopify store for 4 paperbacks. Okay, that's really exciting. So I'm thinking, that's nice. Feels good. At least I'm selling online if I'm not selling in person. Working on the pitch a little bit more. Another sale comes through like 30 minutes later. I'm like, all right, this feels nice. This is always good. So that's my brief interlude for why ammo is great. When you sell, it feels so nice to see your books going out the door. Uh, I'm working on things, starting to get the creative juices flowing, building this pitch, and all right, okay, I can feel the pieces coming together. Now I'm excited to try this pitch in person. And so that's the first moment where I get back into it. I'm thinking, I want to go. I want to go back. I want to not be a failure today. I want to be successful. I want to win. I want to do great. And so as I'm building that pitch, things are kind of fun coming together. Then a guy stops by at my table. He stops and he goes, "Hey, are you from Nebraska?" I was wearing my home T-shirt. It's a silhouette of the state of Nebraska and just says "home." They're great. You should get one of those T-shirts. I love them. Um, and so I said, yeah, started talking a little. He's like, I swear I know you. And we narrowed it down that he worked in kind of an industrial area. And my wife's uncle, Steve, had done an equipment auction in his area and he knew Steve. So Steve he's kind of the big guy in our town. He's done really well for himself. His auction company is called DPA, and yeah, they've built a world for themselves. So it's kind of funny, like, oh wow, in this small world of Oklahoma City, I'm now meeting somebody who knows my family, my in-laws, from 7.5 hours north. That's just crazy. Anyways, that I tell that to you because that felt like a moment, like if you've read The Alchemist or something like that, it felt like a moment where God, the universe, something was speaking to me and saying, "You're in the right place, doing the right thing right now, even though you're far from home. People know you. Be comfortable, calm down. Doesn't it feel nice to be doing something you love?" Even if you suck at it, it's an opportunity to improve. So, yes, that was nice. I got my pitch kind of tightened up. I looked through my website. I ended up with another sale, which was great from the digital perspective. I packed up and I went to the con on Saturday. And I'm going to go ahead and give you my new pitch as best as I possibly can right now. I'm going to borrow a book to do it. So if you are on the YouTube or watch the YouTube later, you can actually see kind of like the physical gestures that go with this. You don't need them in order to do my new pitch. And this is a work in progress, but it slayed on Saturday. I did very, very well on Saturday, to the point that I felt like I was sucking the oxygen out of the rest of my aisle. A couple other changes beside the pitch, but let's get to that first. So this right here is Luke and this is Lyle. For those of you who are just listening, I'm pointing to my book and kind of will reference the book cover a little bit through the rest of the pitch. So, okay, this is Luke and this is Lyle. They are two hard up private detectives who can't even afford rent. So when Marva walks into their office, offering them gobs of money to find a person she says is trying to kill her, they take the case without asking too many questions. Unfortunately, that's a bad choice because they walk into a trap and wind up dead. Yeah. But that's not the end of this story. It could be the end of the book. Instead, it's where things get cooking because they go back to the moment where they met Marva. And until they can solve her mystery, they continue to die in gruesome fashion. That's the pitch. Uh, I hope you agree that it is miles better than booze fueled adventures with a splash of dark humor and a twist of magical mayhem. It's a really tightened up story. And I got a lot of feedback that it was improved. I got feedback from the lady who was crocheting. I got feedback from the people who were selling comics to the other side of me, that they're like, wow, your pitch is so much better today. It was like, so noticeable that people just were eavesdropping and like, wow, you're a different person. And obviously the sales made a huge difference. So 7 books on Friday. I ended the weekend with 99 books Saturday, Sunday. Sunday rivaled Saturday in terms of sales. So it was just a very strong 2 days. And it gave me confidence that I could do this thing. I will probably tighten up the pitch a little bit. Ashley and I went over it yesterday while we were walking Lyle, spending a little bit of time together. And there's a possibility I might even take the last part off and just say they wind up dead, and let people be like, is that the end? And kind of let them sit with that discomfort and be like, no, that's actually only a couple of pages into the book. You'll have to read the rest to find out what happens. I have to nod to that time loop. And that was a really fun part of the new pitch is that after I would give the pitch as I just gave it to you, people would be like, oh, so it's like a time loop. And I'd be like, yeah. They'd be like Groundhog Day. And I'd be like, yeah. So I used to give them the punchline. I would do my booze fueled blah blah blah, and then I would say, people have described this as a mix between Groundhog Day and Deadpool, or Groundhog Day and The Big Sleep. I base that second comp on what I felt like the age range might know. Sin City was another comp I threw in there, so Groundhog Day and Sin City. But I was actually giving them the punchline when I realized if I told them well enough what the story was, they actually fed the punchline back to me. Oh, so it's kind of like Groundhog Day. And I was like, yeah, I knew that's when I was onto something. So I'm going to keep working through it. But each book got a revamped story pitch. So I can do the eight ball magic of Susie Q now. And it's something I never even touched before. If I did, I always felt really awkward about. Is okay, because of the events of the Nine Lives of Marva DeLonghi, Luke is really bitter and she's looking for revenge. Good for her. She finds a magic eight ball that can actually tell her answers about the future, which is helpful if you want to get revenge. Unfortunately, the eight ball also makes other areas of her life worse every time it gives her an answer. Just that alone, people are like, ooh, I wonder what gets worse. I'm still working on the 24/7 of a Russian named Bruskov. I don't have a very good pitch for it. I was actively revamping my pitch for Buckshot Blast and the Goldfish Getaway. I really like the short one, and this kind of defies the story element to some degree. But I have a little small novella called Mountain McJonesy and the Butterfly Dragon. I don't have any copies nearby. I'd show you. It's beautiful. But that one, I just say, this is a boy, a girl, an overbearing mom, and Sasquatch. And that seems to hint at enough of the story elements that people would either, know that that was something they wanted or not. So that's closer to that boost fuel thing, except it's very specific. It's about a boy and a girl. So you know already there's going to be a little bit of romantic tension, an overbearing mom. Everybody understands that one. And then Sasquatch, and like, oh my gosh. So that worked. And the reason I bring it up is because sometimes the pitch can be a little bit shorter and still hint at story. It doesn't have to take 30 seconds. Mine currently, when I time it, takes about 33 seconds, close to 34. I want to get it under that, but I went back to that thought process. When you have a great story, people want to, and it's okay if your pitch is a little bit longer. It's okay if you keep their attention a little bit longer. If you deliver the goods, then you win. Here are a couple of open questions for me, things that I don't know the answers to yet. Does my new pitch adequately prepare people for the level of violence and the number of four-letter words in my book? I won't know for a little while. That's the kind of thing where you have to sell enough that people decide to leave reviews and they're like, wow, I met this guy at a convention. He sold me on the story, but he didn't warn me about how gruesome things would get. So that's something, if I could figure out a way to work it into the pitch where it was just maybe a slight nod to the rated R nature of things, maybe that would be good. Maybe people don't care. That's the other thing is I put a lot of weight onto the rated R-ness of my books right up until this weekend. I always highlighted that as one of the elements. And it was because I was so afraid of somebody feeling defiled, I guess is the word that comes to mind, like offended that I got them with this book. Here's what I know. Very few people who buy from me at the conventions read within days or weeks of buying these books. I know that because my books come with a QR code, so you can download the free audiobook. Well, let me leave the caveat. I'm pretty sure of that because if you got a free audiobook, a lot of people are going to download that audiobook. And I know that my downloads on the audiobook are not very good compared to the number of physical copies I sell. Not everyone is going to download it, even if it's offered. So I guess I might be jumping to some conclusions, but still, it's a very low download rate. 99 books sold over the weekend, and so far, 4 audiobook downloads. So I would say it's not a huge promising thing, but so many people at the con told me this is why I bought the book because I love the idea of getting the audiobook. So, I'm not sure. I don't know what's happening. People are maybe setting down everything they bought, they're moving on with their lives, and then you just don't come back to those things for a while, or it happens in its own time. I'm really not sure, but they're out there. And I guess the reason I say that is because you're maybe worrying too hard about qualifying people when even after you've qualified them, the chances that they dive into your work is still not 100%. That's a big thing. That's a big thing if you work in a bookstore. That's a big thing if you work in a car dealership. Wherever you are, understand don't worry about overselling people. Worry about giving them all the best information that you possibly can. Let them take care of themselves. Let them take care of themselves, even if that feels a little bit greasy to you. Don't deceive anyone. You're not here to deceive anyone. If I saw a 10-year-old come up to my table, I didn't even pitch my books to them because I don't think that 10-year-olds are the appropriate audience for me. And if the 10-year-old was persistent and pushy, and they had a parent with them, then I absolutely went into my disclaimer. Hey, these books have a lot of four-letter words and some graphic violence. If you're okay with your kid watching Deadpool, there's nothing here that's going to bother you, but be warned. And I have sold a few books to kids that are a little bit younger when their parents are like, "Oh yeah, my kid watches porn all the time." No, I've never run into that before. But wouldn't that be you'd like, "Oh, okay, well, this might actually be a little tame for that." But anyways, this is the big thing I want to share with you is that you need to work really hard on being teachable, being flexible, and being open. It's painful. It hurts. It's okay if you're not great at it in the moment. I am the first one to tell you I really suck at receiving constructive criticism so bad that by and large, I do not involve my wife in the process anymore because it's traumatizing for her and our relationship. She can be 100% correct about feedback that she gives me. She can tell me that my story sucks, that something doesn't make sense. She can point out grammar errors that I've made, style issues, misspellings, and like I am so stubborn in the moment that I receive constructive feedback that I'll be like, I meant to misspell that, you idiot. Couldn't you tell from line 35 on page 264 that I was setting up that misspelling? You don't even pay attention to my books. God. Actually, I'm worse than that. I'm really, really mean and pretentious when I get feedback. Constructive criticism hurts me. Um, and I'd say David was lucky because I just barely knew him and I didn't want to show him that like viper side of me, like the really evil, horrible, nasty, slimy side of me. And so I was able to keep it under wraps. But there was definitely a moment where I wanted to preserve face, where I wanted him to know I was every bit as good as he was. Dang him. I'm grateful for the gift, and it's really, really difficult to tell somebody that they're doing something maybe not optimally. They're doing it wrong. They are failing. Those are difficult things, and I'm grateful that David took the risk to tell me I was failing. Him not knowing me, uh, yeah, I'm thankful. There's my dog barking, and it changed a lot for me. Small other thing that changed, and this is still in process. I actually let my prices be a little more variable. Hopefully, the dog doesn't bark forever here. I was selling my books for 18, 30, and 40, even as recently as the Strawberry Festival in Arkansas. So just a couple weeks ago, David also, when I told him my prices, he's like, "Why 18? That's so weird. Just sell it for 20." And I was like, I felt like maybe that was just too much. And he's like, nobody will mind. And I said, what about deals? Do you do deals? And he's like, I don't do deals. If somebody asks me for a deal, I can offer them a deal, kind of at my discretion, but I don't offer deals. And then he told me how many books he sold people. And I was really blown away. So I decided I would take my price sign down and I would just try. So I did 20. I did keep deals. I kept deals because I like to sell, profits are still good with deals. And anyways, I did. I just kept deals for now. I kept them. I might get rid of them. I might because he was right about the pitch and he was right about the pricing, at least in the main. So I upped my prices immediately to $20. And when people would come by the table, I would give them my story pitch. If they got to a point where they were like, well, so how much are they? I'd be like, you can get one book for 20. You can do two for 35, or you can do three for 50. And then I also experimented with two for 35 and three for 45. So letting it be just a little bit cheaper if you got all three. That seemed to work well. I almost sold out of 24/7. I still have quite a bit just because I always have had more of 8 ball, but it worked well. And I moved a lot of 3-book sets. I also moved some 4-book sets, adding in Buckshot Blast. And once I sold everything on the table, all 6 books, that was good. I didn't charge enough for all 6 books because it almost blew me away that she's like, before I even told her price, she's like, I want them all. And I got nervous and I was like, I'm not worth that much. So I'm not even tell you how much I sold them for. Yeah, I will because I need to be honest about what I do. I sold all 6 for 75. It's like, wait a second. You do 3 for 50 and then 6 for 75. That's a dang good deal. And it was a dang good deal. But hey, man, I mean, nobody had ever even asked for that before. I didn't even think I was valuable enough for somebody to buy all 6 books. I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for this weekend. So right now, if you are in the midst of going to your first show, you're planning on going to another show, and you didn't have the success you wanted to, maybe there's something here you can take away: a story pitch. Think about the story pitch. A couple of elements that David suggested I put into mine that I did work into there was make sure that there's the cliffhanger. Questions can work really well. Um, and so if there's a possibility of like, hey, this was early pitch I kind of thought about was, they wind up dead. And so when they find themselves back at the moment where they first met Marva, what do you think they do? But I really didn't want to hand away that much agency to people. Plus, if they were just slightly confused at first, they're like, what do you mean wind up back? Like, did the clock turn back, or what do we mean? So I didn't add a question in. I probably won't, but I'm going to play with this pitch a little bit. I'm going to try to see if I can improve it even more. So in that spirit, if you want to drop a comment in at any point or shoot me an email, feel free to do that. Let me know, what could I add to the pitch that might make it even better? What are you going to do with your pitch? How are you going to take this information and use it? And then most importantly, do you know that you can use the information you get from live shows in your online marketing process? That's the next thing I'm going to do. I'll talk to you about it as I revamp some things to try to see how that works. But if it's in person, the chances of it working online are pretty good if you figure out how to sort of retool it. That's where I want to cut us off today, is my story from Oklahoma City. I will be in Lubbock, Texas, this Saturday and Sunday at the West Texas Comic Convention. It's at the convention center in Lubbock, just 2 days for a 12-hour drive. And I'm taking my son, my oldest son, with me. We decided that this would be an improvement to what I'm doing. He'll be able to get some video of me pitching to people. He'll be able to get some pictures of the booth, some interactions with customers, so that I can start posting more of the visual aids to this process with you online, because it's simply impossible for me to adequately market my own books while I'm at the convention and to take the kind of media samples that I need to do. So that is that. My son will be with me. And let me give one more shout out to David Joel Stevenson. He's the one who wrote The Surface's End, and he's the one who taught me how to pitch. So you should check out his stuff. I'll have links in the show notes. A couple of other people that I met there that I like. You can get prints or artwork from this guy right here, wolfbrand.com, WULF brand.com. That picture that I briefly showed you reminded me so much of Luke that I couldn't help myself. I had to grab a copy. And last but not least, we got Forge. This is by Braden Boyd, Breydon Boyd, Shape Comics. Shape Comics. He's another guy I met. We did a trade. I gave him my first novel. He gave me a few issues of comics. They're fantastic. I read Shape Man last night. I really enjoyed it. It's just kind of a vintage kickback to old timey sort of comics. It's a lot of fun. You'll enjoy that. So I'll have links to all of them in my show notes. It was a good time, and I'm looking forward to sharing more with you soon. Thanks, and we'll talk to you again soon.